Order. Order.
The ayes to the right, 104. The noes to the left, 412.
The ayes to the right were 104, the noes to the left 412, so the noes have it, the noes have it. Unlock. Order. Order. Under the order of the House of the 3rd of November 2025, I must now put the questions necessary to bring proceedings on consideration to a conclusion. I call the Minister to move Government Amendments 43 to 72, 169 to 177, 76, 178, 179, 78, 180 to 182, 79, 80, 183 to 197, 91, 198 and 93 to 142 formally.
I beg to move.
The question is that Government Amendments 43 to 72, 169 to 177, 76, 178, 179, 78, 180 to 182, 79, 80, 183 to 197, 91, 198 and 93 to 142 be made. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Consideration completed. Third reading.
Now.
King's consent.
Now.
Fine. You just need to nod. I call the Prime Minister to move third reading.
I usually have to ask the King for consent, so that was... Madam Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that the bill be now read for a third time. Madam Deputy Speaker, I still remember the first time I met the Hillsborough families with Bishop James Jones. That was nearly 15 years ago as the Director of Public Prosecutions. It was a humbling experience. I was taken aback by their courage. To be able to campaign after such unimaginable loss, it floored me. As a father of teenagers who come to watch football with me, I do not think I could do that myself. But then to keep going and going and going, as the state deployed all its power to obstruct justice and truth. And that, Madam Deputy Speaker, is a stain on our history. And yet, keep going they did. And we are here today because of them. And some of them are with us in the gallery today, and they were with me in number 10 just this afternoon. Indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker, that has always been the motivation for this bill. The Hillsborough families fought so that no family like them should ever have to endure and suffer what they went through. What they have done will protect individuals and families that they'll never know, they'll never meet, but will never have to go through what they went through. That is incredibly inspiring and humbling in my view. And so this is not just a bill for the 97, although it is that. It is a bill for every single working person in this country. Because let's face it, there is a class element to this. Time and again, the cry for justice was ignored by the British state because of who the victims are. Because they're working class. Because they're black. Because they're women and girls. And so I come here today not to take credit for this government or this House, but as Prime Minister, to put on our national record exactly where the credit belongs, because, Madam Deputy Speaker, it belongs to the families and to the campaigners, and I pay tribute to every one of them. The Hillsborough families, Hillsborough Law Now, Inquest, Grenfell United, the Manchester Arena families who again were with me this afternoon, or some of them, and are here today. Victims of the grooming gangs, the Horizon scandal, the Infected Blood campaigners, the Truth About Zayn campaign, and indeed all the families who engage with us to share their deeply personal and painful experiences. And I thank them all for their time and, most of all, for their courage. Because whilst these are different tragedies, Madam Deputy Speaker, they represent the same demand repeated across decades for truth, justice and accountability to belong equally to every single person in this country. And so I'm grateful to every member of this House and in the other place, across the political divide, who worked constructively with us to get us to this point and turn this long-denied cry for justice into the law of this land. And it is long, long overdue. And I pay credit to everybody who's fought so hard for this every single step of the way. Thank you for what you have done. And Madam Deputy Speaker, this bill has been too long coming. But now, as we reach third reading, we stand on the precipice of change. This is a moment of real significance for our country. We arrive here with a bill that is stronger and, above all, worthy of those who fought for it. A law that will always carry their name, the Hillsborough Law. And I commend this bill to the House.
The question is that the bill be now read the third time. Dr Keir Mullen.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and let me begin, as I have throughout the passage of this bill, by placing at the forefront my admiration of the campaigners, the family and friends of the 97 who lost their lives in the Hillsborough tragedy. On the 15th of April 1989, their lives were changed forever. Nothing could be done to bring back their loved ones after they were gone. Anyone who's lost someone close to them suddenly like that knows the experience of their world changing in an instant, when at one point the person they care deeply about is there, and suddenly, in the next moment, they're not. And afterwards, everything else is different. But whilst their deaths couldn't be undone, what could have changed, what could have been different, is the truth about what happened to their loved ones being told to them, and it wasn't. But not just as an act of omission, but as part of a deliberate cover-up by the police and others to protect themselves from the consequences of their failings. So what might have been solely a tragic experience of grief that would of course never leave them, with a gap in their lives where their loved ones were supposed to be, was in addition turned into decades of torment as they fought so hard for that truth that was kept from them. The bill is born of that fight and of that torment and is a tribute to their determination. That's why, when I faced the Prime Minister across the dispatch box 8 months ago, I made clear the good faith desire of the opposition to engage constructively with the government on this bill, which I sought to live up to throughout its passage. Not just for the Hillsborough families, but for the many others let down by the state and its institutions, the postmasters, the infected blood scandal victims, those lost in the Grenfell Tower fire and other tragedies and scandals, as members have highlighted from across the House throughout the passage of this bill. And I feel still the keen interest of the families as we reach third reading. But it's our job, mine, the opposition's, all MPs, to both hold in one hand sincerely and clearly the experiences of all those people who've suffered so greatly, and in the other, our duty, our responsibility to legislate carefully and in a considered way. And I'm deeply disappointed that this Prime Minister, this government, has made that task much, much more difficult than it needed to be. Because I would challenge any MP, no matter... I would challenge any MP, not yet, no matter how supportive of this legislation, with far-reaching... No, I will finish this moment. With far-reaching consequences, not yet...
Order. The Shadow Minister must be heard. Keir.
I would challenge any MP, no matter how supportive of this legislation, with such far-reaching consequences for the operation of the government, to say the progress of this bill, and particularly over the last 24 hours, is anything like careful and considered.
I just want to record that these families and families across the country affected by this bill have waited years and years too long. Years too long. I made a promise to these families, looked them in the eye and said I would bring this forward as soon as I could, and I've kept that promise, and I'm proud that this Labour government is bringing this bill in.
If the Prime Minister wanted to truly live up to that promise, he wouldn't have introduced legislation with less than 24 hours' notice on an issue of national security. Because, as the House has alluded to, I would have wanted the opportunity to make this moment purely a positive one, but I'm afraid the Prime Minister has made that impossible for me to fulfil the duties to my House. Less than 24 hours' notice for consideration of a bill before us at third reading is simply unacceptable. The House, those families, this bill deserve greater respect than that. And there is simply no excuse but a series of mistakes by his government that have led us here. Led us to the place where those of us that engaged in good faith, as I did, engaged in good faith, cannot possibly be expected to have any trust left on a bill that has trust at its heart. The Prime Minister, the Prime Minister announced this bill at his party conference in 2024, and the media were briefed and told that the bill and how it would operate had the full support of campaigning families and their legal advisers. They were so supportive, in fact, that they released statements to that effect, and we now know that wasn't true. They'd already explained their misgivings. And then after the introduction of the bill, the Minister told me directly that the families were entirely happy with how the bill was legislated, and that also wasn't true.
Grateful to the honourable gentleman for giving way. The party opposite was in power for 14 years and could have introduced this bill. Why didn't they?
I thank her for raising that point, and it was on that basis that I sought sincerely to engage properly with the bill. As the ministers and officials who met with me repeatedly would be able to attest to, you cannot sustain that when the government brings forward legislation with 24 hours' notice of important matters of national security. The government says it has now resolved the central tension that led to the bill being pulled. After months of negotiations, the central claim made by their ministers that the bill needed particular safeguards for the agencies working on national security have now disappeared. They are apparently no longer needed. A government that has willfully misled us repeatedly on this bill now wants us to set aside, the government.
I think the Shadow Minister needs to be very careful in his use of language. Keir Mullins
has inadvertently, repeatedly misled us on this bill, now wants us to take them on trust. I heard personally and directly from ministers and officials repeatedly that independent safeguards were needed, and now apparently they're not. Supposedly, over the weekend, those concerns have evaporated, and that is totally unacceptable. The security services have told us for 18 months, with consistent, sober, professional warnings, that we are suddenly setting aside in a matter of days, coinciding perfectly for the Prime Minister to come here and give his final speech on this matter. Are we really going to suggest that that genuine professional opinion has changed overnight? I don't think that we have. I want to believe... Sure.
I'm grateful to the honourable member for giving way. As an opposition MP myself and my party have been critical of the handover of power that has taken place in the Labour Party. But at this particular moment in time, at third reading, this moment should belong to the families. We can do our party political point scoring whenever and wherever we like, but this moment should be, does the member agree that this moment should belong to the families?
If the government was so concerned about this bill passing clearly, they should have organised it. We have just listened to rafts of amendments to this bill being nodded through on this House with absolutely no scrutiny. But, Madam...
Order. Order. The honourable gentleman will sit down as well. I will hear the Shadow Minister. I appreciate temperatures are running very high, but it is important that voices are heard in this House. Dr. Keir Mullen.
And so, as I've said, what could have been a bill that we could have supported without reservation is one we maintain reservations on, I'm afraid entirely as a result of the mismanagement of it by the Prime Minister. But what I want to conclude by saying is that none of this takes anything at all away from the families. They don't want to hear it. It doesn't take anything away at all from the members opposite who've done so much to bring this legislation forward. But what is clear is it is their legacy, the legacy of the campaigners and the MPs and nobody else that are responsible for us being here. And I welcome their campaigning over many years and thank them for it.
I feel tempted to start this speech by saying, as I was saying 10 years ago in this place, but it feels fitting to be here tonight, and particularly to be with my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, because I remember very clearly at the conclusion of the second Hillsborough inquest how he worked with me as part of the Shadow Health team back then to draft the original bill that was presented to Parliament, and tonight is before this House. It does feel tonight like life is coming full circle, and as we pass this momentous piece of legislation, a piece of legislation that will change the way this country thinks and works about justice, it truly is a rewiring of the state and a passing of power from the authorities to the hands of ordinary people. Yeah. And it is happening because of the Prime Minister's commitment to a country based on justice and fairness, and we thank him for that. Yeah. He has honoured his commitment to the Hillsborough families, and what this House will do in passing this bill tonight is rebalancing the scales of justice so that we have justice for ordinary people going forward, and that, Madam Deputy Speaker, is some legacy indeed. Yeah. We have all recognised that we simply would not be here tonight were it not for the dignity and the determination of the Hillsborough families who are with us in this chamber this evening. They, supported by the wider group of campaigns as part of Hillsborough Law Now, I do want to recognise their lawyers, Pete Weatherby, KC, and Elkin Abrahamson, KC, who are with us this evening to Inquest, Deborah Coles, who's with us as well, and all of the people who supported the campaign. This is the reason why we are here. But might I say also, we are here because of the city of Liverpool, represented so well by my honourable friend, the member for West Derby, who has been the parliamentary lead on this bill and has been entirely true to the people of his city, as has my friend Steve Rotherham, a former member of this House, Mayor of the Liverpool City region, who also carried forward this campaign to this point. I cannot describe my pride, Madam Deputy Speaker, in being in this House tonight to see this bill plant the values of the city of my birth at the heart of this country. And that is something of huge and profound significance that has been brought about by the Hillsborough families. And we recognise the significance of that tonight. As Steve Rotherham has said, the Hillsborough law can't do any more for the Hillsborough families. Indeed, it will do much more for those who come after them. But that's what makes their campaign so special. They've done this for others, not for themselves. Yeah. And those others include, and it's very important to remind the House of those other campaigns who we hope now will be lifted by this legislation as we pass it this evening. We do think, as the Prime Minister said, of the Grenfell survivors and families this evening, and I'm sure all London members will want to echo that, who are still waiting for justice and accountability over 9 years after the Grenfell fire. We think tonight of the Primados families who have fought so hard for fairness, supported by my honourable friend, the member for Bolton South East. West. I have been away for a while, but I'll get there in the end. But also, I know other members in this House have supported those who've suffered other treatment disasters, sodium valproate, mesh, PIP implants. These are still ongoing campaigns, and we need to recognise these campaigns in the House tonight, as we do the Chinook families, Madam Deputy Speaker, who were in court today. And I was only just speaking to the honourable member for Mid Dorset and Poole in the lobby, and we pay tribute to them this evening. But let's not forget also in this list, and I know they have support from across this House, the servicemen who served this country in the post-war period in the South Pacific, our nuclear test veterans, Madam Deputy Speaker. How often in this House do we praise our veterans, and how in this case have we left those veterans without truth and justice in terms of what happened to them all of those years ago? And I think this House needs to hear their call for a special tribunal, Madam Deputy Speaker, entirely consistent with the aims of the bill we are passing tonight. This bill advances all of these just causes, and the campaign for truth and justice does not stop here. Indeed, it accelerates from here. I hope it ends the cover-up culture that has failed so many ordinary people in this country. We can never forget that for 20 years, an entire English city was crying injustice correctly, and yet this place ignored them for all of that time. We cannot forget that, and we cannot take away the hurt that that caused. We cannot forget that postmasters and mistresses serving communities up and down this country were branded as petty thieves and carried that stigma with them for years. Likewise, those who were infected by infected blood and were blamed that they had brought it on themselves through their lifestyle. We can't forget that, Madam Deputy Speaker. And let's finish where I started, that the Liverpool supporters were blamed for harming their own fellow supporters at a football match. That is what was done. That was left to stand for all of those years. These families here tonight had to live with that for all of those years. Imagine what that must have felt like. We have had a situation in this country where people suffer the trauma of the initial bereavement, the incident that took their loved ones away. Then they are re-traumatised by the behaviour of the state. We can't take that hurt away tonight, but we can put decency back at the heart of the British state, and that is what this bill does. And I finish again by praising the Prime Minister for making it happen, and this truly is his legacy. Thank you, Madam
Sir Edward Davey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I begin by echoing the words of the Prime Minister and the Right Honourable Gentleman, the member for Makerfield, in paying tribute to the Hillsborough campaigners. Our whole country owes them a debt, and I want to speak about that. But I want to speak in the spirit of cross-party support and working, which this moment demands. And I want to pay tribute personally to the Prime Minister for the work he has done on this, having to overcome the difficulties we know with the security issues. And I also want to pay tribute, and I hope it's not the last time, to the Right Honourable Gentleman, the member for Makerfield. He's welcome back in this House. He has, for many years, played a very personal role in this campaign, and so it's very fitting that he's in this House tonight to see this law passed. And I want to echo those tributes that he and others will no doubt make, because people have campaigned for many years for this moment. And that enormous debt of gratitude that we owe them for their courage, their tenacity and their determination is one that I hope this historic moment gives proper credit to. But let's remember, as others have said, that it's not just the Hillsborough scandal. It's Grenfell, it's Windrush, it's Horizon, it's Orgreave, it's Infector Blood, it's COVID, it's the nuclear test veterans, and indeed other scandals that were mentioned. Primados, the right honourable gentleman was right to add that to the list. I hope, by the way, that when he takes an office, which we're expecting him to take soon, that he will put right those scandals, and we will hold him to that in a cross-party manner. But there are many tragedies and scandals that have been compounded by state cover-ups. And this is an issue of rights between the state and individuals. Victims, survivors and families having to fight for years or even decades just to expose the truth and win the justice they should have had straight away. All too often, Madam Deputy Speaker, when things have gone wrong, we have seen a tendency to cover up mistakes, to close ranks, to protect institutions, and so often to lie. Victims and families have spent years campaigning tirelessly against a system and an establishment that's tried to find countless ways of saying no. Thanks to those campaigners, we now take a big step closer to ending that culture of cover-up, ensuring that no one has to fight so long and so painfully to get truth, justice and accountability. There is more to do, not just on the individual scandals, but on the need to protect whistleblowers, something that this party has raised, and we want to work cross-party with the government to make sure we set up an independent office of the whistleblowers so people come forward to expose these scandals to make sure justice happens more quickly. Many of the people who will benefit from this law will not recognise, will not even know how hard and how painfully hard the campaigners have had to work over so many years. It's important that we remember that, because it is truly remarkable, having suffered so much pain and injustice, that they kept going. And what has been achieved in this bill is something that will change the very nature of power in our country. And it will make so many people's lives better. So can I thank the campaigners and say to them from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Yeah. The question is that the bill be now read the third time. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Yeah. I will allow a small pause for those who wish to leave the chamber to do so, and for the front benches to switch over.